The morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the county courthouse, casting golden stripes across the polished wood, and the anxious faces gathered inside. Amara Johnson, a 17-year-old girl, stood at the defendant's table, her navy blazer crisp, her red bow perfectly tied, and her chin held high despite the weight of 100 eyes. She was the youngest student ever to make the finals of the state debate championship, a prodigy who could recite case law as easily as breathing. But today she wasn't here to argue for a trophy. She was fighting for her future. The charge was shoplifting, a petty crime, but the consequences were anything but small. Amara's heart pounded as the bailiff called the court to order, the gavel's crack echoing like thunder. Judge Harold Whitaker presided, his silver hair immaculate, his black robe pristine, his reputation for tough justice well known throughout the city. He looked at Amara through his glasses. His expression was hard to read, but she could see the doubt in his eyes. The prosecutor, a young man eager to impress, laid out the case. Amara had been seen on security footage in a local boutique. A pair of earrings slipped into her pocket, her exit swift and silent. Mrs. the store owner, Callahan, testified that she had seen Amara in the shop that day, and the responding police officer said that Amara's backpack contained the earrings. The evidence seemed damning, and the whispers in the gallery grew louder. Amara, on the other hand, stood tall, her mind racing through each and every story flaw, inconsistency, and detail. She was certain of her innocence, and was more familiar with the law than anyone else in the room. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, Amara's voice was clear and steady. "Your Honor, I'd like to represent myself." The courtroom gasped. The prosecutor smirked, and Judge Whitaker's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure, Miss Johnson? This isn't a debate club. This is real life." Amara nodded, her resolve unshaken. "I understand, Your Honor. I know my rights." The judge shrugged, clearly amused. "Very well. Proceed." Amara began by questioning the store owner, her tone respectful but incisive. "Mrs. Callahan, how many customers were in the store that day?" The woman hesitated. "It was busy, maybe 10 or 12. "And did you notice that I took the earrings?" Amara pressed. "No, but I saw you near the display." "Did anyone else see you near the display?" "Mrs. Callahan faltered, glancing at the prosecutor. I suppose there were others." Amara turned to the policeman and nodded. "Officer Daniels, when you searched my backpack, did you find my debate folder?" The officer gave a nod. "Yes." "And was it open or closed?" "Closed." "So you didn't open it until you saw what was inside?" "That's correct." Amara gave a slight grin. "And the earrings weren't lost in my bag, but were found inside the folder?" The policeman grinned. "Yes, inside the folder." Amara turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I would like to submit that the earrings could have been placed in my folder by anyone while my bag was unattended during the debate practice at school." I said. The judge shook his head, but he didn't say anything. Amara continued with sharp questions and flawless logic. She pointed out that the security footage was grainy. The time stamp was off by 20 minutes, and another student had been seen leaving the store just before her. The student had a history of shoplifting, she said. The prosecutor objected, but Amara stood her ground, citing precedent and demanding the right to call her own witnesses. The judge, clearly irritated, allowed it. Amara called her debate coach, who testified that Amara's bag had been left in the classroom for over an hour, accessible to anyone. She called the other student, who couldn't explain why she had been near Amara's bag and stumbled under cross-examination. The tide was beginning to turn. The gallery murmured. Judge Whitaker leaned forward, his tone suddenly sharp. "Miss Johnson, are you implying that you were framed?" he asked. Amara met his gaze, her voice unwavering. "I'm not suggesting, Your Honor. I'm demonstrating it." The judge's eyes narrowed. His lips pressed into a thin line as the courtroom buzzed with whispers. Amara didn't let the weight of the moment shake her, though she could feel it. She had spent countless nights studying legal strategy, reading case law, and watching courtroom dramas with her mother. A paralegal had always told her, "The law is a tool. Learn to use it, and no one can take your power." Amara felt that power throb in her veins as she stood there right where so many had been silenced. She turned to the prosecutor, who was now shuffling his papers, clearly rattled. "I'd like to request the store's full security footage for the entire day, not just the segment presented," she said, her voice ringing with authority. The prosecutor objected, but Amara cited the rules of discovery, and the judge, perhaps out of curiosity or perhaps to test her, granted the request. The footage was brought in, and as it played on the screen, Amara narrated what the jury and the judge saw. The other student, Sarah, lingering by the jewelry display, glancing around nervously, and then slipping something into her own pocket before heading toward the back of the store. Minutes later, Amara entered, browsing the shelves, never touching the earrings in question. The timestamp, now corrected, showed that Amara had left the store before the theft even occurred. The prosecutor's face became pale, and murmurs filled the gallery. Judge Whitaker banged his gavel for order, but Amara pressed on. "Your Honor, I'd also like to submit a statement from my debate coach, confirming that Sarah had access to my bag during practice and was seen near it multiple times." The statement was accepted by the judge, who lost his composure. In the front row, Amara's mother squeezed her hands together, her pride and fear clashing in her eyes. Amara resisted the prosecutor's desperate attempts to redirect. She pointed out inconsistencies in the officer's report, highlighting that the earrings had no fingerprints, certainly not Amara's, and that the store owner had never actually seen Amara take anything. Now clearly uneasy, the judge attempted to regain control. "Miss Johnson, you seem very well versed in the law for someone your age." Amara smiled, her confidence unshaken. "The law is about truth, not age. With respect, Your Honor." The judge's glare quickly brought the quiet applause in the gallery to a halt. Amara raised her Fifth Amendment rights, and the fact that Sarah was now a suspect rather than a witness when the prosecutor, now sweating, tried to call Sarah as a witness. The judge, caught off guard, sustained the objection. Amara then asked for the charges against her to be dropped and the court to looking into who really did it. The judge hesitated, clearly struggling with the loss of control over his own courtroom. He glanced at the prosecutor, who could only shrug helplessly. The gallery watched in stunned silence as Amara, a teenager, dismantled the case against her piece by piece, exposing not only the truth but the flaws in the very system meant to protect it. Judge Whitaker cleared his throat, his voice tight. "Miss Johnson, you have certainly raised reasonable doubt. I will take your motion under advisement and issue a ruling tomorrow." Despite her calm expression, Amara's heart raced as she nodded. Despite her efforts, she was aware of the judge's reputation. She knew that sometimes even the truth wasn't enough. As the courtroom emptied, Amara's mother rushed to her side, wrapping her in a fierce hug. "You were brilliant," she whispered. "No matter what happens, I'm proud of you." Amara smiled, exhaustion washing over her. "Mom, I just want them to see the truth. That's all I ever wanted." That night, Amara lay awake, replaying every moment, every question, every answer. She was aware that the judge could still rule against her and alter the facts to support a narrative that did not serve justice. But she also knew she had exposed the truth for all to see. And that was frequently the most potent thing all. The next morning, the courthouse was buzzing before the doors even opened. News of Amara's performance had spread to the town like wildfire, drawing a crowd of students, teachers, and even a few local reporters eager to witness the outcome. Amara arrived early, her mother by her side, both of them dressed in their best, their heads held high. As they entered the courtroom, Amara could feel the energy shift. People whispered her name, some offering encouraging smiles, others simply staring in awe. Judge Whitaker sat at the bench, his face unreadable, but Amara noticed a tightness in his jaw, the way he avoided her gaze. The prosecutor looked defeated, his stack of papers now little more than a prop. When the bailiff called the court to order, the judge cleared his throat and addressed the room. "Before I issue my ruling, I want to commend Miss Johnson for her poise and knowledge of the law. It is rare to see such skill in someone so young." There was a smattering of applause, quickly silenced by the judge's glare. "However," he continued, "the law is not a game. It is a serious matter, and this court will not be swayed by theatrics." Amara maintained a neutral expression, despite feeling a chill run down her spine. The judge continued. After reviewing the evidence, including the full security footage and the statement provided, I find that there's insufficient evidence to proceed with the charges against Miss Johnson. The case is dismissed. Amara felt relief as her mother squeezed her hand so tightly that it almost hurt. But the judge wasn't finished. However, I am deeply concerned by the conduct of all parties involved. This court will be referring the matter to the district attorney for further investigation into the actions of the other student, as well as the handling of evidence by law enforcement. Some people cheered, while others shook their heads in disbelief as the gallery erupted in whispers. Amara stood, her heart pounding, and addressed the judge one last time. "Thank you, Your Honor. I hope this case serves as a reminder that justice must be based on facts, not assumptions." The judge nodded curtly, but Amara could see the frustration in his eyes. Amara was surrounded by reporters, their questions flying as the courtroom emptied. "How did you learn so much about the law? What do you want to do next? Do you think the system is fair?" Amara gave thoughtful responses to each question, speaking with maturity and wisdom beyond her years. "I learned from my mother and from watching how the law can be used to help or to hurt. I want to be a lawyer, maybe even a judge, so I can make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. And no, the system isn't always fair, but that's why we have to keep fighting." Her responses, which were broadcast on the evening news, sparked discussions about issues of justice, race, and the power of youth throughout the city. That afternoon, Amara returned to school, where her classmates greeted her with applause and hugs. Her debate coach pulled her aside, tears in her eyes. "You didn't just win your case, Amara. You changed the way people see what's possible." Amara smiled, humbled but proud. She was aware that the struggle was far from over. There would always be those who questioned her, attempted to silence her, and perceived her to be inferior. But she also knew she had a voice, and she intended to use it. That night, as she sat at her desk, Amara began drafting an essay for a national scholarship competition. The prompt was simple: describe a time you stood up for what was right. Amara smiled as she wrote, her words flowing easily. She was aware that her story was only beginning. In the weeks that followed, Amara's story spread far beyond her small town, capturing the attention of national news outlets, legal scholars, and civil rights organizations. Letters poured in from across the country, some from young people inspired by her courage, others from lawyers and judges who saw in her a glimpse of the future. Amara was invited to speak at schools, community centers, and even a local law school where she stood before a packed auditorium and shared her experience. She spoke to the crowd, her voice steady and clear. Justice isn't automatic. It's something we have to fight for every day, in every courtroom, classroom, and conversation. Her words resonated, sparking standing ovations and thoughtful discussions about fairness, bias, and the power of knowledge. Meanwhile, the district attorney's investigation into Sarah and the mishandling of evidence by law enforcement led to real consequences. Sarah was given a chance to come forward and, after several tense meetings, finally admitted to planting the earrings in Amara's bag. She apologized publicly, and while Amara accepted the apology, she also insisted that Sarah participate in restorative justice sessions and community service, believing that true justice meant learning and growth, not just punishment. The police department, embarrassed by the exposure of their sloppy work, implemented new training programs and stricter evidence protocols. Judge Whitaker, whose reputation had taken a hit, was called before a judicial review board to answer for his conduct in Amara's case and others like it. The findings of the review board were made public, and the judge remained on the bench despite being required to attend bias and ethics training and having his future cases closely monitored. Amara's mother, who in the past was worried about her daughter's future, now looked on with pride as her daughter developed into a leader and an advocate. Amara was awarded a full ride to a prestigious university for her scholarship essay, which won first place. There, she planned to study law and continue her fight for justice. Amara spoke from the heart as she stood on stage to receive her award, her family and friends cheering. "I was almost silenced by a system that didn't want to listen, but I learned that when you know your rights, when you speak the truth, and when you refuse to back down, you can change the world, even if you're just a teenager." Her words were mentioned in newspapers and circulated on social media, motivating a new generation of young people to learn about their rights and to advocate on their own behalf and for the benefit of others. As Amara prepared to leave for college, she visited the courthouse one last time, standing on the steps where her journey had begun. She turned to look up at the building, no longer a place of terror, but instead a reminder of what she had accomplished. She made a promise to herself that one day she would return, but not as a defendant, but as a lawyer or, possibly, a judge, ready to improve the system for everyone. As she walked away, the sun shining on her face, Amara felt a sense of peace and purpose. Although she was prepared, she was aware that the road ahead would be challenging. She was a fighter, a legal genius, and most importantly, a supporter of justice. And as her story continued to inspire others, Amara Johnson became a name synonymous with courage, brilliance, and the unbreakable power of truth.